draw all those pictures, write everything down. So we just thought we'd give you some flashcards. So first up, we have adjacent angles. So I'm going to flip that over. Two angles that have a common vertex and a common side, or they're angles that are next to each other. That's next to idea is really important, so I'm going to underline that one. Next to. Okay, so if I take my colored pencils, one angle I have here is it goes from F to M and then to P. And an adjacent angle, we're thinking if we just like walked next door, what would be the next room that we're in or the next angle that we're working with? PMT, yep, PMT. So if we think of rooms that are adjacent to this room, which rooms share a wall with this room? Like in this school, who are the teachers that I share a wall with? Does anyone know the teacher that I share a wall with over there? Miss Glenn. And who's my teacher over here that I share a wall with? Mr. Tyson, yeah. So Mr. Tyson and Miss Glenn are adjacent to us because they share that wall. We have that wall in the middle, that space where they share. It's like we're going next door. Okay, so adjacent means angles that are next to each other. They're right next to each other. Okay? All right, let's find linear pair next. Okay, so linear pair. What do we see in that word linear pair? Linear, and what's in that word linear? Line. So if you want to underline that word line on the front. Okay, so a linear pair means we have two. So if I have two angles, what are they going to make together? A line. Good. Nice work, you guys. Yes, they make a line together. So as we flip this over, it's a pair of adjacent angles that create a straight line together. Okay? A pair of linear angles a pair of adjacent angles that create a straight line together. So as we look at this one, we have one angle, angle 4. So it's a smaller angle. And then what angle is adjacent to 4? Which one is touching it or next to it? 6. And when I start at one end and I go all the way to the other end, if I worry about that part where they connect and I just go all the way through, connect them together, it creates a line. That nice straight line that goes across. Mr. Khan, do you mind dimming these lights just a little bit? The light's just kind of reflecting weird. There we go. Beautiful. Better. Not great, but better. I don't know what's happening. Maybe I need a white piece of paper behind them. Yeah, it's just like a weird glare. I'll just put them. Is that better? There we go. A little bit better. Okay, so when we create a line, how many degrees is a line? 180. So we know that they're 180 degrees. Okay, now there's another word on here that we haven't dealt with yet, and that's that word supplementary. So let's find that card that says supplementary. We're going to keep this one out for a second because we need to write a little note on there about supplementary. But find your card that says supplementary angles. Okay, so if we flip that supplementary angles over, what do we know about supplementary angles? Two angles that have measures add up to 180 degrees. So that 180 degrees is our important part there. They add up to 180 degrees. So in this one here, if I take 125 degrees and I add it with 55 degrees, what's 125 plus 55? 180. So these angles are supplementary. Now, with these angles that are supplementary, do they have to be adjacent? Do they have to be touching? No, they're not touching, and that's okay. So supplementary doesn't mean they have to be touching. They don't have to be adjacent. But if they are adjacent, what is 180 degrees in the math world? A line, yeah. So if they are adjacent, they do create that line, which makes it 180 degrees. But they don't have to be. We could just add them together to make 180. So now if I jump back down to that linear pair, this one down here, the one that's at a pair of adjacent angles that create a straight line together, it says that they are always supplementary. Now we know what that word supplementary means. What does it mean to have supplementary angles? It means that together they're going to add up to equal what? 180. And if you want to color code that, that means that if I take the first angle, whatever measurement that is, plus the second angle, whatever that is, together they make 180. And that would be a really good way, if we don't know one of them, we can use that fact to tell us how to find the other. All right, as you're looking at these, which other word might go with supplementary out of the three we have left? Yeah, complementary. So next up we have complementary angles. I'll give you a second if you need to write any of these down, write them down, copy what you need, and take those away in just a second. So supplementary adds up to 180. Complementary are two angles that add up to 90 degrees. Okay, 90 degrees is our big idea here. If you're not sure which one is which, complementary, I always think of it as the word complement, which is spelled differently, but if you give a compliment, that's always the right thing to do. And a right angle is 90 degrees. That's the way I think of it. That's the way my teacher taught me way back when. Right, so if we look at these two angles, are these two angles adjacent? Are they right next to each other and share a side? Nope, so these are not adjacent, but are they complementary? Do they add up to 90? Yeah, 76 plus 14. 6 plus 4 is 10. Carry that 1. 7, 8, 9. Yep, 90 degrees. So we know that these two angles, even though they're not touching, they don't have that overlap, they still have that 90 degree sum that we add. If they are adjacent, we put them next to each other, what does a 90 degree angle look like? I said it earlier. What's another name for a 90 degree angle? A right angle. And how do we show a right angle in a picture? Yeah, that little square. So we have that little square. Okay, so supplementary and complementary, depending on when you started your math career, those are words that hopefully you've heard before in the past. If not, now you know them, which is great. Let's go to that word perpendicular. Perpendicular. All right, perpendicular is lines or segments that intersect at 90 degrees. 90 degrees. So where they cross makes a 90-degree angle. Okay, the symbol we use for perpendicular is this upside down T, like an upside down capital T. And the way that we read that is perpendicular to. Okay, is perpendicular to. So then rather than writing out that word perpendicular every time, we just use that upside down T. So here we have segment LT is perpendicular to line KP, because with that line we have those arrows on both sides. So we see here we have that 90-degree angle in that corner, that little box. So that tells me that this is 90 degrees. Now if I look at LT here, remember LT creates kind of that line. It's a linear pair, it's a segment. So how many degrees does this have to be in order for those two to make 180? 90. And then same idea there. If I want these two to create a 180, then this also has to be 90. Which leaves our last part here that has to be 90. So when we have perpendicular, that tells us all four of those angles are 90 degrees. We don't have to write that box in every corner. We can assume that every corner it's 90 degrees. If we see one of those boxes and they're intersecting, then we know all four are 90. All right, last one. This one I would be arguably the most important today is vertical angles. So find vertical angles. This one is going to be new for you. Vertical angles. And a really important one. We're going to use it a lot in the second chapter, in the second part of chapter 2. Vertical angles are angles that are across from each other. So that word across is really important. When two lines intersect. Okay, so as we look at this one, we could look at this one kind of on this left side. And that vertical angle with it would be the one that goes across. It's like you go see that vertex and you go through the vertex. You go across to the other side. So they're not next to each other. They don't share anything other than that middle point. They're across from each other. So you could look at it side to side. Also, this up and down one would also be a vertical angle, this up and down. If you want to shade that in, you can. I'm just going to leave one shaded in. And what we know about vertical angles is that vertical angles are always congruent. I'm going to throw that congruent symbol next to it, that squiggle with the equal sign. And if you need to remind yourself, what does congruent mean? Equal. Vertical angles are always congruent. So, as you're finishing up those, we're going to take out our books. our notebooks, we're going to glue in one example real quick, and then we'll put these in an envelope to keep. But as we look, I don't have a, there we go. Take a look up here at our little posters. So up here we have adjacent angles. They try to make this look like an A. You guys see that? A. Adjacent angles. And how do we know that they're adjacent? They're together. They're right next to each other. Here, they created this as vertical angles. This is supposed to be a B. Vertical, and then they tried making this an A for angles. And they're right across from each other. Vertical angles. How did they make complementary angles? How did they show you that what complementary means?
90 degrees.
90 degrees. They put this little dash in there to try and make this look like a 90 degrees for complementary. Kind of clever, right? All right, supplementary of this S and supplementary angles. How did they create that S into what supplementary means?
180.
180. They tried to make this an 8, and then they put a 1 and a 0. So 180 supplementary. Okay, and then what about our linear pair? They broke linear pair up into 2 parts, and what do those 2 parts create?
One line.
One line. So linear pair is a line. And we know that that means that they're supplementary. Okay. So if you haven't noticed, we have our lovely things up here that some of them are a little tricky to see, like the cube. Again, the cube, they tried making that an A. Right? The T. Yeah? Okay. Cool. I haven't pointed those out yet, so that was you pointing out. All right, so go ahead and open up your notebooks. We're going to label this 1-5 angle relationships. Keep these cards out. Try not to mix them up with your neighbors. You should always have 6. All right, we're on 1-5 angle relationships. Last lesson of chapter 1. All right, you're going to get a glue in. When you get your glue in, I'm also need to pass out the glue. But remember with that glue, we're going to do it really lightly, like really, really, really lightly. Otherwise, it soaks it. Okay? So, angle relationships, and then go ahead and glue this in at the top. Don't leave any space. Glue is going to come around. Oh, Mr. Kona got them up here real quick. Those ones you have to unplug and it doesn't go a little thing. Sorry. You want to hand these ones out? Sorry, I take the glue away. My 9th graders did not do well with the glue. So I put them away for a little bit. They were crazy. Alright, so go ahead. Glue is in these paper bags, so go ahead and take them out and pass them around. Remember with the glue, you don't need to squeeze it too hard. It's just a very light and gentle brush it on to that piece of paper. Okay, so when you get that glue and you get that glue in, just nice and light, brush it on. It's like a paintbrush almost. You don't need to squeeze, otherwise it's going to get drenched. Just nice and light. It's always better to go a little too light with the glue and have to re-glue it than to go crazy and then not be able to draw on it or anything. Okay, so just nice and light over the top. Brush it on. And then glue that. Perfect. So we're going to practice naming a couple of these relationships that we see in this picture. All right, so let's start with adjacent angles. So if you want to take out that card that says adjacent angles, that's what we're going to be identifying first. So I'm going to just write adjacent. And we just need to name two angles here that are adjacent to each other. So we want two angles that are next to each other. So who's got one angle that they can start with for me? Angle A what, C? Not A and C. Remember, we used three letters, so A, B, C. Yep, you got it. A, B, C. So angle ABC, and we're looking for adjacent. So now I want to name the angle that's right next door or shares that side with ABC. And we have two options here. One we can actually name, one we'd have to add a point. So what angle is right next door or right next to angle ABC? ABD. That's close. ABD would include that angle. I want to go right next door to it. I don't want to expand it. So instead of ABD, we're going to go CBD. It's like we start where that last one left off. We went to ABC, so now we're going to start at that C and go CBD. We go right next door to it. CBD. Okay, if you want to color code, this would be a good time for color coding. So it's always, we pick up where we left off. So in this one, we've been A, B, C, and then we're going to pick up where we left off and go C, B, D. We could have also started at A and gone A, B, and then we would have needed a point down there for that next angle, A, B, and then J. We don't have a J up there yet. All right, so that's adjacent. Our next one is also going to be adjacent, but we're going to do a linear pair. So if you need to pull out that word linear pair, find that card, linear pair. I'm going to just write linear because these are my notes, so I'm just going to shorten it. If linear, you're not going to realize linear and linear pair are the same. Write pair. Doesn't take you much longer. It's okay. All right, so linear pair, we're looking for two angles, again, that are next to each other. But this time we want to create a straight line where they come together. So where can I have two angles that are next to each other that create a nice straight line? One way to do this might be to pick out a line first. So if I, what? Yeah, EFH, AE, this line here. Okay, so if I pick out this line, how could I break up that line into two equal parts? Or not equal parts, sorry, two parts of angles. I could go from E to F and then cut to where? G, sure, if you want to do the top. So angle E to F, and then instead of going straight across to H, I want to make it an angle. So I'm going to go E to F to G. And then adjacent means I want to pick up where I left off. So if I do E, F, G, what would be that next angle right next to it?
GFH.
Good, G, F, H. Awesome. Okay, and we have that FG in the middle. But when I combine them, it creates that whole 180 degrees. All right, let's try a complementary. So complementary angles are two angles that have measures that add up to 90 degrees. There's not really any degrees measured here. They don't say exactly what everything is. So what we have to do is we have to look for that symbol that tells us it's 90 degrees, because there's nothing in there that says this is 32 and this is, what, plus 32, 78. Nope, 58. 32 and 58 make 90. There's none like that. So what we have to do is we have to figure out, where could I find a 90 degree angle in this picture? Yeah, that ABC is 90 degrees. But that one's not cut into two parts. So where else, that was what I was asking though. So you got it, good. ABC, we have that 90 degree angle there. So CBD, if I look on that side, if this side is 90, what do I know about this side? It's 90. If you want to throw in that little box there, you could. So if I break up that 90 degree angle into two angles, what angles there would add up to add up to 90? So CBD and what would be that next angle next door to it that would make that 90 degree angle? I heard a couple things. What? So that's what we're trying to make, is we're trying to make CBE. We got this top part, CBD, so we started that 90 degree angle. Now we need to finish the 90 degree angle. So DBE, or you could do DBF or DBH, either one. I'm just going to do DBE, as long as it goes in that direction. So we have CBD there. And if I combine it with that, DBE. Good. All right, let's do a supplementary now. Now this one, I'm going to give you the first one, and I want you to try and figure out. I didn't spell complementary right, did I? I forgot an E and an N in there. Supplementary. Okay, and my first angle I want is angle DBE. I'm telling you that's the first one I want. And this is just, you want to challenge your brains a little bit. Pick one that's a little bit harder to find a supplementary angle for, DBE. So what angle could I combine with DBE to create a 90 degree angle? Or I'm sorry, a 180 degree angle. My brain today is fuzzy. EFI would be across from it. I want to create this nice straight line going across. So I have DBE. What could I piece together with DBE to create that straight line going across? EFH? That would just be a straight line. That would just keep going. So I like that you guys are trying to start with that E because you're thinking adjacent angles. Rather than thinking of where we left off at E, where else could we leave that angle off at? What's the other side of the angle? D. So if I go D and then B, what would create a straight line with BE? If I went D, B to A. Yep. Good. Nice job. All right, last one we're going to do is a vertical angles. So if you want to find that vertical angle card. In vertical, we're looking for just two angles that are across from each other. So remember, we're looking for like side to side or up and down. They're across, vertical. So we do angle GFH. GFH. That's this angle here. I'm going to mark them with the congruent symbols because I know that they'll be the same. Close. You have the right letters. Now we've got to put them in order. So far I heard EIF. That's not quite the right order. Be starting at E. And then where would we go after E, though? F, and then we would go to I. So E, F, I. Remember that middle letter has to be what point? What do we call the middle part of an angle? Starts with a V. Ends in vertex. Vertex, yeah. That F is that vertex, so it has to be the middle point. Nice work. I know, again, this first chapter, the math part of it is not necessarily super hard. But it's a lot of vocabulary. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you this envelope. This envelope, what you're going to actually do is the part that you would like write to on is the part you're actually going to glue down into your notes. If you need to do it on the next page, do it on the next page. And then that way you have that flap up, and then you can put your little cards into that envelope. Okay, so you're going to glue so that that part that you would normally write to is going to be facing down. So the envelope is up, and you can put your cards in that envelope and keep them. That way you don't lose them. Remember, you should have 6. So if you need to count real quick, make sure you have 6. And then there is